Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to your Ep.3 Draft to Glory franchise mode here in NHL 26. So last episode, if you did not catch it, we simulated the first full season, and his team didn't pick up a single win, which is nice. And obviously, another nice thing is we do obviously have a high up pick to start building this team around. Now, lucky for us, we do have the third overall selection, which means we are guaranteed to grab ourselves one of these players that we were linking in, which was DeLuca or Antonio. Likely DeLuca will still go before our selection, so Dave Antonio will be probably our first pick, which is quite exciting. So at least a nice elite player likely to start building this team around. So hopefully he's kind of more of a two-way defenseman, because obviously if he's a DFD like DeLuca, I don't think DFDs that are elite potential are the best in a way, because they end up eating a lot of money, but kind of hoping he's a two-way, so that way he can maybe help provide some offense from the back end for our team as we develop them. So yeah, very excited to get into this first full draft. Technically last year we had a draft as well, but obviously it wasn't a super good one because it was the first draft that happens in expansion mode, and usually those drafts are quite weak, so we only got like Benak. So I'm hoping for this draft we could start developing a decent prospect pool and hopefully start building up a good roster for the upcoming seasons. But anyways, with that said, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will get into this draft and see what we could snag up. Now, there was a lot of comments in last episode, so I just want to apologize if I don't get to your comments. There's like way more comments than I was anticipating, so we're going to go through as many as possible, but I'm apologizing ahead if I don't go through your comment. So the first two comments are from Dylan Burrows. This first one says, I think the toughest position will be goalie. If you see one that has any potential, even if it's a higher pick, I think you should draft him sooner than later. And yeah, that's a good point. I think definitely goaltenders are going to be a tough one to grab one from a random country like France, for instance. But lucky for us in this draft class, there is actually a goalie that we could pick up, and that is Mr. Henry Glenn. He's likely going to be one of our selections for sure in this draft class. He only has fringe starter potential, but at least that does give us a goalie in our system. And if we could somehow grab Bolshevik as well, that might not be a bad idea, but obviously these guys aren't going to be the craziest goaltenders in the world. But finding other goalies that fit our need, maybe actually have this Lizak guy. I didn't even realize him. He's actually from Poland, so he's technically eligible too. So we will definitely pin him as well, because he could be closer to starter potential because of the fact that he's supposed to go a little bit earlier. So maybe we'll take a chance on Lizak, and we'll still take the French goaltender in Glenn later on. But obviously our first priority is probably grabbing more forwards and defense, but definitely grabbing a goaltender is going to be one of the toughest things, so we might as well do it at some point in this episode. Dylan also says, also, will you be keeping injuries on? I know when prior years you've turned them off, and I personally don't enjoy watching series that have injuries. I get it if the first couple to build up the roster and fly through it, but after that we need to have a roster. I think injuries should be on. Let me know, thanks. And yeah, basically, I do plan on having injuries off for the first 5 years at least, probably, until we could have like a full roster in the NHL and AHL. And then afterwards, we could probably think about, obviously, turning those injuries on, and then we could actually have players getting injured and all that. Like early on into franchise mode, we have a lot of filler players, and just seeing them getting injured all the time kind of annoys me. So we will turn injuries back on, but for right now, we are going to turn them off. So let's go ahead and do that right now, just because I almost forgot about doing that even before this episode started. So we're going to go to gameplay sliders here and go to injury occurrence. We're going to leave, I guess, the AI at 9, or should we just turn it all off? Let's just turn it all off. I mean, I could leave the AI injuries on, but let's turn them all off completely. And obviously, they'll come back on, like I said, in a few seasons. If you guys could remind me, once we actually have a full roster to turn back on, that would be helpful. The next comment is from Between the Blue Lines, who says, the draft should have 100% been a part of the episode. I think every episode should be sim and draft. And the reason why I don't do stuff like that is have everything in one episode is because I want your guys' opinions on who to draft. I know some people think I can make the decision on my own, but the thing is, part of these type of series that I run is getting your guys' input on things so that we could build up a team, not just myself. So that's why I don't tend to have the draft and the season sim in one episode. I know we could fly through these first few seasons really fast if we did it like that, but I would prefer to have your guys' feedback on potential players to pick up in later rounds and that type of thing, so we could build this team rather than just myself. So that's probably how it's going to be, is we're basically the first at least few years while we're still rebuilding this team We're going to have, obviously, the regular season simulation, then the draft and off-season, then the regular season simulation. It's just going to keep going like that until we obviously become a competitive team. And once we become a competitive team, then we'll probably take it a little bit slower through each season. The next comment is from Offseason, who says, you should be using the interviews to find out if Dave is NHL ready or the German a few ranks lower. And yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about using the interviews because I don't really use those too much in franchise mode. But since we have so much restrictions in the series, obviously interviews should probably be an important thing to do. Obviously, we kind of know Antonio's probably going to be elite considering he's supposed to go in the top 5. So we don't really need to worry too much about this draft. But obviously, for future drafts, if we want to find the best player with the best potential from our country, we should probably be interviewing people so that way we have better information on them. So likely that's what we're going to do. Also, getting in some new scouts and stuff like that will probably help things so that way we could better read the draft class and all that. The next comment is from Jack Milne, who says, I feel like you should be able to draft from the Baltic and Balkan countries. It wasn't their choice to be part of the USSR, LOL, and it feels like an unfair restriction. And it might be an unfair restriction, but to me, I just want this to be kind of challenging. I don't want this to be necessarily a cakewalk where we guarantee ourselves a Stanley Cup. So I feel like obviously having a restriction and basically knocking out countries like Finland and Sweden, I think those ones generate so many prospects that it's easy to knock them out. Knocking out a lot of the USSR and stuff like that, I think as well, it helps out a lot too, because then we could have like multiple scouts in multiple places in, say, like Europe instead of like Canada and all that. Like obviously when we reset all our scouts, we're not going to have players, our scouts scouting out anywhere in Canada, the United States. Like it's going to be a lot easier, I think, to find those guys that we want once we have actually good scouts in. So I don't think it's going to be a tough series to win a Stanley Cup necessarily, but obviously the restrictions, it just really depends on how good these draft classes are. So I think it obviously does make it tougher, but at the same time, it's a good thing for it to be tougher. And obviously, I would at some point maybe do like a series where I could include everything from all these other countries other than like North America, for instance. But right now, I think I just wanted to kind of see how these prospects develop from other countries first and foremost before we include random countries that are making it a little bit easier. The next comment is from Tyler G, 1994, who says, bring us Hungary Dave. And yeah, this is a funny one because obviously we have our Dave Luzinski Be A Pro going on at the moment. Well, it looks like we're going to be potentially bringing in another Dave to this team. And the funny thing is, obviously with our Dave from our Be A Pro series, we said that he used to work at a restaurant. He's also a guy that really likes burgers and all that. So technically he's hungry, obviously, all the time. But this guy's from Hungary and his name is Dave. So this guy's nickname, if we do select him, will be Hungary Dave for sure. And I really hope that he develops into being a really good player for us, and hopefully he's here throughout his entire career if we do select him, which is likely to be the case unless he for some reason goes before our selection. Next comment is from Ice Attack, who says, imagine if you take that Dave guy and he becomes a beast, and we'd be following two different Daves in two different series. And yeah, exactly like I just said, it would be kind of funny just to kind of have a Dave, obviously our main Dave in Be A Pro series, and in this Dave, I don't know what he looks like, but he will be obviously like the second coming of Dave in our franchise mode type of things. And I really hope that this guy develops into being like, kind of like Dave Luzinski in a way, even though Dave Luzinski just went to the Leafs in the Be A Pro, if you guys didn't watch that or not. Hopefully this guy doesn't ever end up in Toronto at some point in time if he does leave us. And the last and final comment I want to go through is from Sour Taku, who says, getting a potentially elite right D-man with your first pick isn't the worst thing in the world. Grab a goal scorer next draft, hopefully, and you should have a reasonable foundation from which to build this team. And yeah, that's exactly it. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more work after the season to pick up more good players outside of the first round as well. But I'm excited just to see if we continue to get actually players from the countries that we are doing so. I apologize once again about not going through every single comment. There was just way too many, which is a good thing in a way, but obviously I can't feature every single one of them. So with that said, I think we're ready to hop into this draft and see what we can snag up. Let's hope that I actually don't make a mistake and take somebody from a country I can't. So let's hop into it, and obviously we should be able to get Dave here, which is quite exciting. Ottawa's got the first overall pick, followed by Seattle, then it is us, then the Rangers, and then Chicago. So let's see what Ottawa takes at number 1 and see if it stays true to form. Noakes goes first overall, 83 overall left wing playmaker that does have 2 elite abilities or superstar specialist abilities. I have to get used to this part. The specialist abilities and all that. Like the new X Factor system is definitely throwing me off a little bit, but he has wheels and send it as a specialist. Obviously, these could develop a lot more, but he's definitely a solid player out of the gate for the Ottawa Senators. And he also does wear my favorite number, so that's also a plus for the Sens. Seattle at number 2 is going to select DeLuca. So yeah, DeLuca does go off the board before our selection. And obviously we know that he's a DFD, so he looks like this. Looks like he's pretty damn defensive. He's got good shot power. His accuracy is not that great. So yeah, he's definitely more of a shutdown guy. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't end up with a top 2 selection, because maybe I would have thought about taking DeLuca. But now that we're at obviously number 3, it makes our selection easier about taking Dave Antonio. So obviously we don't really know anything about Dave Antonio. We don't know if he's a two-way defenseman. We don't know obviously his potential either. I would assume it's medium elite, but obviously it could be maybe like medium 4 instead. But I think it's definitely medium elite. Just the question is he a two-way, or is he an offensive, or is he a DFD? Based on his size, I'd say he's a two-way. But based on his production in Czechia, I would assume he's maybe more of a DFD. But tough to say. Anyways, he's our selection here. So welcome aboard to the newest Dave in our team history. 72 overall. Damn, he's a low overall. I expected him to be a high overall to start. Draft a player with an X factor in franchise mode. So he does have an X factor, unlike DeLuca, who had none. But why is he only a 72? But, I mean, he should grow at least a lot throughout one season in the NHL. But he does have send it as his specialist ability. So he's a good passer. He is a DFD, though, unfortunately. So he's not a two-way. We could try and change him into a two-way, but honestly, looking at his stats, he's not really much of a two-way. It's kind of weird that he has send it, though, because that's a good passing boost, but he's only got 76 passing out of the draft. So I don't know what I make of this pick. Obviously, this is our best selection we could take, but it's a good player to start building his team around. But like I said, I was hoping he'd be a two-way, but he should be pretty decent. Maybe he'll be the future captain of this team just because he's technically our first elite player on the roster. But this draft class might not be that strong on paper, which is kind of strange because I think I have it set to medium. I wonder if they tweaked anything with overall ratings and stuff like that. But anyways, let's see the rest of this year's top 5. So the Rangers take Appleby, who's obviously a really good player, but not somebody we could have taken. He was an American. And yeah, that's a really good pickup for the Rangers, which means Chicago at 5 is going to take Kondratiev, who's an 81. Like, obviously, if we were doing a normal franchise mode draft to glory, I would have taken one of these two players for sure. But we have our restrictions, and that's why we had to go with Dave Antonio. So let's simulate to our next pick at 34, and then we'll come back to the first round just to see if there's anything that we could have taken that went before our selection. I don't even know if I could take a look at what countries these guys are from in the first round, though. Oh boy, this game is scaring me sometimes because apparently there's a little bit of a bug where obviously if you go to edit your lines before the trade deadline, it crashes. So remind me never to do that until they update it. I don't think I could take a look at where these guys are from, right? No, I can't. That's kind of weird because normally it used to do that. But I know Novotny was able to be a selection because he's from Czechia. Can't remember where everybody else is from. I think Bakos was the German, right? But yeah, the rest of the first round looking pretty basic. Damn, a medium top 6 defenseman going. Ew. This might not be a strong draft class on paper. Damn, Prospal was a low elite as a two-way defenseman. That's actually kind of surprising. So Prospal looking good. I wonder if he's a real player. Because if he is he related to Vaclav Prospal or not? But yeah, this doesn't look like a strong draft class. It could be because also guys like Gavin McKenna are in franchise mode, but I'm not too sure. All right, our next selection here. Obviously, we cannot take a single Canadian. Who is the next best player on a country we could actually draft from? The answer to that is all the way down here. So this is definitely going to be a tough draft class for us, but we'll probably have to go for Albatolzer here. He's not supposed to go till like next round or even maybe later than that. But we got to go with the best available to us. So let's go for the defenseman, Thomas Albatolzer, who is an offensive defenseman. Does have actually some decent overall ratings, it looks like. So I think he's going to be like a 65 or so. I don't know how he's going to develop and how he'll play offensively in the NHL. But let's take him with our next selection from ERC Ingolstadt and see how good he is. And he is a 64. That's not too bad. Obviously, the potential's not the craziest, but he could maybe become something decent. Like, maybe he could exceed his expectations because he's an OFD, and he'll be getting a lot of playing time with other elite players and stuff like that eventually. But he could be a player that also gets replaced within a few seasons. But that's not a bad selection. Could be a lot worse. Let's simulate to number 67 now. Oh, man, we have pick 67. Is that what people are memeing about? Because I know there's a meme going around about 6 and 7 or 67. But we have pick 67 in this draft. I honestly don't know what that meme still means. I know I must be old or something like that, but just shout out to the number 67 because I know I saw people mentioning about 67 before. All right, so with this selection, obviously we can't take any of these Canadians or Americans. Who's the next best player on the board from a country we could take? There is the real player in Christoph Szongoth, or whatever his name is, from Hungary. He's a guaranteed medium bottom 6. Anybody else supposed to go relatively soon? There's also this guy, Mr. Kearns, 104. We could definitely get that guy next round. So I guess we'll go for the real player, even though he doesn't have a picture. He's a medium bottom 6. He's not anything crazy, but we might as well take him. 61 overall is a decent starting point. Just gives us more depth on our forward group, which is a good thing. But yeah, he's definitely going to be a guy that gets replaced at some point. All right, 100th overall now. Kearns is here. I know the goalies. When are they supposed to go? Next round, it looks like. Yeah, next round probably. So we probably could get Lysak next round, which means I think we'll probably go for Kearns here with this next selection. There's also Bartley, but we don't have him scouted at all, so he's a high risk. But he is a French player, which is pretty cool. There's also Biggs. We don't know anything about him. There's also Thorne, who we know nothing about. So there is actually a lot of players around this point. There's also some Swiss guys like Keatley and also Lutz. But I don't know anything about them. So I think with this selection, just because we don't know anything about those guys, we'll probably just go for the highest rated, which is potentially Zach Kearns. He might be a low 6, might be a medium 9. He doesn't actually look that great on paper, to be honest, but he is eligible to be drafted. He's playing in Finland, but he is Danish. So let's bring in Zach Kearns with this next selection. So welcome aboard to Zach Kearns. Low top 9. Not ideal, but a decent overall, at least, for an 18-year-old. So he does have some solid shooting. His offensive attributes, honestly, are okay. He might produce at the AHL level. Not sure about the NHL, but it does give us a little bit more filler players for a roster, which is good. All right, let's simulate to our next pick, and we'll go back through the 4th round just because I'm curious on those other guys we could have drafted, like the Swiss dudes and stuff like that, if I could remember all their names. There's Bartley, the French guy. He was only a low bottom 6, but he is a 60 overall. Who else was a guy available? Biggs is medium 7th. Thorne was medium 7th. So I think we made the right selection. Keatley's also low bottom 6. Lutz is an AHL top 6. Damn, this draft class is actually not that good. Nabokov is a fantastic steal. Obviously not a country we could draft from, but that's a great steal for Utah with that selection. So there you go. Let's make our selection here. And we're going to go for Lysak, the goalie. We do need a goalie, and he is a Polish goaltender, which is kind of neat. I don't know if there's ever been an NHL goalie that's been Polish before. Actually, I guess technically Peter Sidorkiewicz might be Polish. I think he was born in Poland. I can't remember. Or he does have, maybe he was born in Canada, but he has Polish roots, something like that. But Lysak's going to be our selection here. So let's take him. He's also playing in Czechia right now for Paradubis, or whatever you pronounce that country. Or city name, my bad. Let's just take Lysak anyways. And he's a medium French starter, so he's only as good as the French goaltender, but at least we're grabbing ourselves some goalies, because like we said before, it's going to be definitely one of the toughest things for us to do in this mode. So welcome aboard to Lysak. Let's simulate to our next pick at 166. See if we could get Glenn as well. Can we get Glenn still? No, we can't. Did Glenn just go off the board? Damn, we can't get the French goalie either. I thought he went later. Oh well, I guess we at least got ourselves a goaltender, but is he better than Glenn? That's my question. Wasn't expecting him to go already. So where is that goaltender, Glenn, the Frenchman? Even though Glenn is not a French last name by any stretch. Oh, there he is, 47. So he's a worse overall player. It would have been nice to have a French goalie, but Henry Glenn ends up in Dallas. So I think we made the right selection going with Lysak since he was projected to go earlier. But man, does it kind of suck that we didn't get 2 goalies. Aside from that, there is Seidel, who's probably real. Czechian player playing for Everett right now. So we could take him. Let's pin him for the time being. Who else do we have options to us? Because at this point, we're pretty much blind. I don't think there's anybody else we have left pinned. There's also Lampman. We could take Lampman probably, maybe next round. There's also Iverson. Jim Iverson from Switzerland. That's definitely not an actual player for sure. We'll pin a couple players that actually fit our country need. And then we'll see what's available to us still for next round. But yeah, this obviously is not the strongest draft class. Maybe we should be turning up the draft class quality. I honestly don't know, but I think I have it set to medium, not to low. So let's just go for the best player available potentially to us. So we'll go probably for Seidel. He's probably a medium 7th or a medium AHL top 2. So he's not going to be a huge useful player to us, but let's take him anyways. Might as well fill out that defensive core a little bit, since last year we targeted a lot of forwards. Seidel is a medium top AHL top 2, 59 overall, so yeah, he's definitely a player to be replaced, but we might as well just fill out that defensive core a little bit with our own players. That means our last pick of this draft here in round 7 at 199th overall. We have a couple options. We could sort by potential here. See if there's anybody here. The best one might be Ramsey. Stan Ramsey. Based on potential, he might be the best. There's also a couple other options available to us, though. It said, like Gilbert, but Gilbert's probably a medium AHL top 2. Ramsey is probably the best option here in the selection, so let's go for another Polish guy and Stan Ramsey and take him as well. It's kind of funny that we're drafting a lot of Polish players and we're also drafting a guy named Dave. Like, it just seems like everything's coming together for this team. So let's take Stan Ramsey with our last selection of this draft. 50 overall, medium bottom 6. I mean, I probably would take that over a medium AHL top 2 defenseman, but I'm not too sure. So he's a grinder. Maybe he could develop into being like a 70-something overall, but if not, he's just more of a physical presence anyways. So that is our first official draft of the series, and like I said, it could have been better, but it could have been worse probably as well. Obviously, future drafts hopefully will be better once we get out of that range where guys that would be actually in-game, like, for instance, like I said, Gavin McKenna is not in the game, so that's probably why these draft classes are a little bit weaker. I'm not too sure. But anyways, we get Antonio 3rd overall, which is exciting. We get Albatozer, who could maybe become a good offensive defenseman, but he's only got medium 6 potential. Everybody else is a big crapshoot, including Lysak the goalie, but at least we're starting to fill out the roster a bit, grabbing a couple defenders, a couple forwards, and even a goalie. So I'll take it. Hopefully next year's draft class is a lot better, though, to be honest. All right, so now we got to get to the re-sign stage here. And obviously, we got to start signing still more of our cap whales once we get players signed onto our team. We have 42 out of 50 contracts, so we could probably sign all of the guys we just drafted without letting go of anybody. But we do need to still have cap whales. I don't know why it's still trying to teach me how to play this game. I played it last year. You don't need to be telling me, but all these guys are going to be playing in the NHL level. I know some people are saying about probably not playing these guys in the NHL right away, but the draft to glory thing, it's basically if we play them early, they won't be too worried, I don't think, on how the team's performing. I don't think it's a huge issue right now. So they shouldn't lose morale, hopefully. So we'll get these guys all signed up. They'll all play in the NHL next year. We could probably let go of a goalie then if Lysak signed up here. So all the RFAs, we'll come back to those in a second. UFAs, well, we're at 49 to 50 contracts, so I probably will let go of all the guys that we should have probably let go of last year, like these 70-plus overall dudes, because these guys were basically players that had an extra year left when we took them in the expansion. So we'll let those guys all go, including Hayden Hodgson. And then these guys will probably be our cap whale type players. So let's give these guys big money, $20.8 million. Enjoy that, man. Grab yourself a mansion, whatever you want to do with that $20 million. Same with you. And that puts us to $45 million. We'll do one more player at $20 million, I think. There you go. Now we should be close to cap compliant, I think. He didn't even accept immediately. That's actually kind of surprising. Let's do a couple million on it, a couple other players just to make it a little bit easier for us with this cap situation. Obviously, we also, like I said, need to readjust the scouts, so we're going to obviously be doing that here shortly too. And let's get Aronson signed up as well. That's all good. Sinclair, I guess we'll let go of since we just signed one of our goalie prospects. And then all these RFAs will be taking two-way contracts, so this is going to be pretty easy to go through this part of the offseason at least. So at least we won't have to sit here as long as we did last offseason where we had to sign all these filler players, but it shouldn't be too hard to put this team together. I'm really excited to see what this team does by comparison to last year, though, because we didn't have a single win in our first season. So will we be able to find a way to somehow get a win next season, or are we going to get at least a point? I want to kind of make some growth already, but at the same time, obviously, we want a high-up pick, so maybe we don't want to win anything whatsoever. All right, all these RFA goalies can get signed as well, so we'll do that. Strassen's going to have to play in the AHL next year, though, because we're going to be running Lysak likely at the NHL level, so let's just get these guys signed up. Make sure it's 1 year, though, because we don't really want to commit to people for multiple years at the moment. There you go. And that should be good. Olsen should accept his contract. If he doesn't, that's kind of surprising. He does accept it. Okay, good. So 23.98. We might need still one more cap whale potentially, like at 5 million or something. But we got everybody signed up, which is good to see. Obviously, Antonio being our best player by far. Like, if we look at potential on a roster right now, you can see we're still lacking a lot, obviously, but at least we have an elite potential player. And that's all we need to really start with. But Lysak's tied for our best goaltender technically right now, so we'll be probably playing him and Kolars in the NHL. Strassen will be playing in the AHL just because I don't want him to split time with Lysak. So that's all good and set up. Let's advance to the free agency portion and see if we need a cap whale or not. And if we do, we'll sign one. If not, we'll obviously get into signing some scouts up here. And obviously, we need to make sure that we set that up properly for next season as well. But do we need a cap whale is the question. Let's go propose trade wherever the heck this is again. There it is. Let's see. Do we need a cap whale? No, we don't. We're just actually above the floor, so we don't need to worry. That's good stuff. Nice little cap movement. And we need to go to our scouts now because hopefully there's some good scouts available to us now. There might not be still, but we're going to obviously sign all the best ones we can. We will keep some of these guys, I think, because some of them are rated B-, but we obviously have to reassign where they go. So let's fire all these C-rated scouts and below for the time being. Obviously, we got to reassign a lot of these guys because they're all in leagues that we're not actually going to be worried about in the series, so that's going to be exciting. It's going to be kind of weird having multiple scouts in Germany, because usually I don't do that type of thing. Usually it's multiple scouts in Sweden and Finland, Russia, US, and Canada. Instead, in this series, it's going to be a lot of scouting those random leagues out. Other leagues like the Dell, like the Czeching, Extraliga, stuff like that. Alright, so we do still need 13 scouts, so let's go ahead and do that. There's a couple B-rated scouts here, which is good, so we'll obviously be offering them contracts. One of them is Trevor Lewis, so obviously Trevor Lewis being an actual NHL player, that's kind of neat to bring him in as a scout. I think that's the real one, unless it's a generated Trevor Lewis, but his age would make sense. Supre, come on, let me give him a contract, thank you. We need, how much did I say? 13? Yeah, I think it was 13, so we need still 10 more. Looks like we're going to be stuck with a couple C scouts, but we'll eventually have a scouting pool where it should be a lot of like A and above, or B and above, I should say, for that matter. But at least we should have better representation of the players we could draft potentially this year because we have more people in those actual leagues. Because originally this season it was a bunch of like filler scouts, so now these guys should be able to actually do their job and look into players we want. Alright, so there's all the scouts, 13 of them. I think that's all we could offer, right? Yeah, that's all we needed. I don't think there's really anything else we need to do before we sim up to next season already, because we don't really need to worry about addressing our coach yet. We could always try and make our coach worse and stuff like that, but I'm just going to keep the coaching staff the same for now. And obviously that's something we could address once we want to become a better team or if we want to kind of find somebody that fits our roster a little bit better. So I think that is good. So let's sim up to next season and see what we're working with. Also, in this episode, I guess, we'll take a look at what all those new players on our team look like in their player faces, because it's kind of fun when you do in the Draft to Glory when you look at the faces of the new players on your team. Just so that way we could have somebody on the thumbnail. I don't want Benak really on the thumbnail. I think Dave Antonio deserves the thumbnail now. So we obviously got to take a look at what he looks like. And yeah, hopefully he looks pretty cool, because he might be the face of this franchise for a long time. Or who knows, maybe next year's draft will have the future face of the franchise. Because obviously we haven't really drafted an elite forward yet, so I'm hoping that's something that comes next year. Just because obviously we just brought in an elite defenseman. We don't really need the elitist defensive core on paper, but we need a solid defensive core, and we need an offense that can score too. Because right now, obviously, that's probably the big problem is scoring goals, I'm guessing. But also giving up too many too, for that matter. All right, so let me go to set captains for a second here. I don't think we really need to set captains. It's making Masterliski a captain. I'm going to just put him as an alternate for the time being. Him, Reber, and Benak, since these guys were the original selections, we'll leave them with the A. Eventually, though, we could name a new captain, and maybe Dave Antonio is that type of guy, wearing number 88. So we'll leave that for now. Let's go to edit lines here, and hopefully the game doesn't crash, which it is not yet. Good. Because I think it's closer to the trade deadline that it does that, so... Goalies, we'll have Lysak and Strassen. No, we don't want Strassen because I don't want him comparing time. We'll do Kolars and Lysak. So Lysak's going to be the official starter in his first season. Aside from that, we don't really need this many defensemen up here. So we obviously want the worst ones available to us other than the ones we selected. So that means Likonen, Koskela, and also... I guess we need a depth defenseman up here, so we'll keep the other two up here. So send those two guys down, which means Antonio, Albatozer, Vapanik, and Seidel, who we drafted, are going to be there. Anybody in the AHL that should be up here? No. Because Lundestrom, even though we drafted him, he's not available to us. So all those guys need to stay in the AHL, but we do have ourselves 7 D-man. Actually, we did turn off injuries, so we don't really need a depth defenseman. Never mind. Didn't even think about that. Let's send Roush down. So that's going to be our defensive core. From an offensive standpoint, Veet's already up here. Bjorkman's not mine, but is there anybody to call up here? Not really. Lamb wasn't a selection of mine, right? No, he wasn't. Thought so. So yeah, just Zaheski has to be up here, or however you pronounce his name. Mastalowski's up here. Kearns is up here. Sever was not my selection, but he could be up here. I think, actually, we need to call up the worst players. So technically, I guess we should probably be doing this, calling up Postel instead. And then on the left side, we need to be calling up somebody like Taisila instead of Bjorkman. So we'll do that. And then in terms of the centers, Reber, Benak, Keller, we're drafting a decent amount of centers at the moment. We will call up Ramsey because he needs to be up here. He's the only one that needs to be up here out of these guys. So we'll send down Okani. Not Otani. We'll send down also Lambacher and Yelinemi. And call up another left winger and another right winger. So I'll call up Radinen. And we'll also call up Maki Haho, or whatever you pronounce his name. And we'll go best lines like that. And let's see what we got here. So Benak on the top line with Reber. Reber's a center, though. Who's got good face-offs out of these two? Reber. So Benak could probably go second line center. How's Keller's face-offs? Oh, he's a right winger, too. I forgot about that. So we'll go him on the right side. Kearns is a left winger. He could be up there. Ratnan's fine to be up in the lineup because, actually, we want our drafted players to be as high as possible, probably. So let's go something like that. Ramsey could maybe play right wing. Yeah, he'll play right wing because his face-offs aren't fully developed yet. So that's all good and ready to go. So the forwards that we got to watch out for this year in their seasons, we have to watch out for this entire top 6 and also these two guys. So we almost have a full top 9. It's not bad. And then defensively, obviously, it's going to be Albatozer and Antonio. That might work out decently because it's an OFD and a DFD. And then we have Vapanik playing with Seidel. And then these guys are just fillers. And then goaltending, obviously, it's going to be Lysak and Kolars. All right. Scratch is obviously nobody because we don't have injuries on anymore. And in terms of our power play, I don't care about the AHL lines because there's nobody down there that matters. Reber, Masterliski, Benak, Albatozer, Antonio. It's a -5 on the power play, though. That's not great. And I don't really know why it's a -5. It's not like anybody really badly fits it other than Benak. I don't really know why it's that badly minus, but we'll take it. We're not going to have a good season, but hopefully those power play guys could still perform on a -5. So that's all set up and ready to go. Now comes the fun part about taking a look at what those new guys on our team look like, and then we'll look at what the upcoming draft has for us, and if there's any players that are actually players we could take. And then that'll probably be it for this episode at that point. But let's go to edit player here and take a look at the new guys in town on this team. So we didn't take a look at the guys we drafted last year. I don't really care about taking a look at guys like Adam Benak and all that. I want to look at guys like Ramsey, for instance. So let's take a look at what Stan Ramsey looks like, as he's a new member to this team. And oh no, please don't crash. Oh my god, I got scared there for a second. It took a while to load. You just never know with this game, man. But this is what Ramsey looks like. Actually, let me go to his gloves instead so we can get a closer up look of his face. So this is Ramsey. Good old Stan Ramsey, number 18. He looks like he fits this team quite well. I like the tilted visor that he has. And his stick is quite nice too. I kind of like the Sherwood sticks like that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Actually, out of curiosity, when is his birthday? Because I kind of like looking at the birthdays on some of these players. Holy crap, I'm scared that this game is going to crash. May 22nd of 2008. Damn, man. 2008. I was already probably playing like NHL 08 at that time. Alright, aside from that, let's go to left wingers here. Actually, there's technically Christoph Sagondov, but he's a real player, so do we care about looking at him? Probably not. I just want to look at the generated guys for the most part. Zach Kearns, obviously from Denmark. Let's take a look at what Mr. Kearns looks like. See if he's got an interesting face or mustache or something. And he looks pretty basic. Alright, does have a slightly tilted visor, I think. Maybe not. Warrior gloves, nice red stick. Actually, the red stick kind of complements our jerseys a little bit, kind of, because it's all primary colors. I like that. Where's number 5? Alright. Yeah, I kind of really like how our jerseys turned out for this team, man. They look really nice. Like, it kind of just has that nice united feel to it. Aside from that, we also do have some defensemen to look at. So, obviously, Dave Antonio we're going to look at last, because he's going to be the main event. So we're going to look at Jakob Seidel, then Albatozer, then the goaltender, and then Mr. Antonio. But let's take a look at Seidel. I think he's a real player, though. So this one isn't going to be super interesting, but I'm pretty sure he's real based on his last name. And yeah, he looks like a generated guy, or a real guy for sure. Looks like he has good size to him a bit, but he's going to be a player that's probably not going to be here too long term. His stick is blue, so at least it kind of fits with the team a bit, but like I said, I don't know how long-term he's going to be on this team because he doesn't really have much potential. Vapanik, I don't know if he's real either. We took him last year. I feel like he's probably real. But Thomas Albatozer, the OFD, what is he looking like? Is he going to be the type of guy that puts up a lot of points just because he has like an aviator visor or something like that? He looks okay. Let's see what he's looking like. All right. CCM gloves. Alright, Bauer helmet. Pretty basic face. Like, what is his hairstyle actually, though? Yeah, pretty basic. Nothing too crazy with him, just an all-black stick almost as well. But, yeah, at least he's got, like, some nice tape on his what is it, sock. I could not remember the name of it for some reason. I was like, wait a second. Alright, final two players to take a look at. The goaltender, Mr. Cody Lizak from Poland. I don't know if he's real or not. I don't think so. But let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at our Polish goaltender. And I don't know why it blacks out all his gear. Like, do I have to actually change it over? Or is it going to be all black in-game as well? Like, this glitch is kind of annoying. Like, I don't know why it doesn't show him in his team colors or not. But we need to change his mask for sure. I think we need to go over to kind of a Swedish mask. I know technically Sweden's not a country we could draft from, so it kind of doesn't make sense. But Swedish masks usually fit the best. Oh, wait, that's on other leagues. I feel like Swedish masks would fit the best with our jerseys. Because there is also some good Finnish ones This one actually looks not bad. I was thinking of like HV71 kind of a bit. Do I want to customize this right now? Ooh, this one is kind of a new mask too. Dresden. Alright, that looks kind of cool. But I don't know about that. And maybe I'll leave this stuff for now. This mask looks pretty nice as well. The HC Davos one. Yeah, you know what? I think I'll leave that for now. But obviously we could customize it. But Lysak, in terms of his face. Oh, he's got the lamb chops. He's got the lamb chops. Alright, so this is our goaltender. Mr. Lysak. He's definitely a generated guy. There's no way there's a guy like that. There is probably a guy like that in real life somewhere, but definitely not in playing hockey, in my opinion. Guy with lamb chops? I don't know about that. All right, now comes the main event, Mr. Dave Antonio. Is Dave going to look pretty cool? Is he going to look like the actual Dave, or is he just going to look like a generic dude? Answer to that is... he looks like he's an Asian dude, which is interesting. Wasn't expecting that. He does have some red facial hair, which kind of goes with our Dave. But this is what he looks like in the playoffs. Like an Asian guy with like red hair. At least his hair kind of fits Dave Bluzinski a bit, but interesting. Was not sure what to expect from him. He does have a true smoke stick, which I think is new, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, looks pretty nice. Alright, let's get a good little screenshot of his face so we can put him in the thumbnail. He's too tall almost, though. He's too tall. I have to get a screenshot of him like this, probably, because, yeah, his head goes through the rest of it. So we're going to have to go from far away, and hopefully I could bump him up so he actually looks good on the thumbnail. Or else we'd have to actually get an in-game screenshot of him or something like that. But that is our new elite defenseman, and that is the new players on this roster. Still should be a really bad season, but obviously hoping for some good stuff from the young guys. Also, in terms of next episode, I need your guys' opinion. Should we be setting season goals already on these dudes to try and get them to grow faster? Or do you think it's unrealistic because our team's going to be bad that these guys are actually going to hit any goals? So, anyways, I think that is that. And final thing, as I mentioned, the draft class. This is a big part. Obviously, we won't be able to know what potential these guys are right now, but is there any good players in the upcoming draft that we could actually draft that are supposed to go top 5 or something like that? Hopefully it is. And there's a check-in. Okay, he's a real player, I think, though. It's maybe Roman Hammerlick's kid. But yeah, Ulrich Hammerlick is available to us. So at least that's another good defenseman. There's also Klinge as a left winger. Rudolf Klinge. We'll obviously pin him. There's an Austrian, Javon Kerslake. We'll obviously pin him. Austria's available to us. Now they're checking in Pivko. Looks like there's some available to us in the first round. Not a crazy amount. There's also Toby Mitchell from Denmark. We'll pin him. I already know Jared's already typing up some names for these guys or something like that. Benjamin Weston from Austria as well. There's a Slovakian Zednik. All right. That might be related to Richard Zednik, unless he's a generated dude. I'm not too sure. There's another Austrian in Pisani. A lot of Austrians in this draft class. It's interesting. This is a Russian-based country, or used to be. So that's pretty much all that's available to us early on. Any interesting goalies? Ooh, an Austrian goalie too. Dimitrakos. Why are we getting so many Austrians generated? And there's also a Bosnian goalie. Let's go. Okay. We said goalies were going to be tough for us, but this is the draft class that we find our number one, in my opinion. Dimitrakos is not supposed to go till 3rd round, but he's probably a starter. Then there's also a Swiss goaltender and a Bosnian goalie. You don't see a Bosnian goalie very often. And then you also see a Denmark goalie from Fallon. But I think this is the goaltending draft where we might find ourselves some. There's even technically an Italian goalie that's playing in Austria. I don't know if this guy's real, but Italian? I don't think I've seen a lot of goalies from these countries in a while. So we might have just hit the jackpot. Also, Whitmore from Croatia. Don't think I've seen a Croatian goalie very often either. But we might hit the jackpot in terms of goalies we could actually pick up. So, aside from it being maybe a bit weaker for forwards, I think we could find ourselves at least our goaltenders in these drafts, which is quite exciting. So there's that. Also, I think that's all we need to do. Technically, I should be reassigning my scouts. Maybe I should do that in this episode. I know this part's something I could do this in between episodes, but I just want to make sure I actually do it. And then you guys could kind of see how we set this up, and you guys could suggest if we should adjust it. But like I said, we need to put scouts in nowhere in North America, nowhere in Nordic, and nowhere in Russia. It's just Europe that we're going to. So we're going to be putting, I guess, 3 scouts at least in Germany. We might have to put 3 scouts in each of these leagues. Let's see what else we got here. Reassign this guy. Let's go to Dell as well. 3 people scouting Germany is actually hilarious. I don't think I would ever have done that before. But this at least makes it easier for us with finding out if those prospects are good or not. We'll also head on over to the NLA. We'll draft some people probably from Switzerland this year at some point, because we have been drafting Swiss guys decently so far. So we'll do 2 at least in Switzerland for the time being. Actually, there's already 3 in Switzerland, but that's okay. Let's see what else we got here. Let's do 3 in Czechia. 3 in Czechia probably makes a lot of sense, because Czechia usually generates, I think, a decent amount of prospects. If I should readjust this in the next episode, though, please let me know. But I'm just trying to put as much people into each of these countries that we could actually draft from. But we are very limited. We're only limited to pretty much these countries, I think, to scout in, if I'm not mistaken. So there's 3 in Czechia now. I'm pretty sure there's some other country here, right, too? Oh, yeah, there's the Ice League as well in Austria, which there actually is players generating from there, which is surprising. So either they're the real players, or we are actually getting some randomly good luck to start off this franchise mode, which would be nice. Then again, they could not be maybe good players, but still, I would take some bodies over not having anybody whatsoever. So, all right, so we currently have, let's see. Oh my goodness, we still have a lot of people to reassign. We could actually have 4 in each region potentially. Damn. Because, yeah, there's only 4 regions technically in Europe. So let's do another one in the NLA. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. I don't think I ever was going to put this many scouts in the same region. But this means we should have some really good information, hopefully, on these guys. Obviously, they could be a little bit incorrect maybe, but this is going to be an interesting one to see how good these guys do. Hopefully these scouts are actually doing stuff, though. But we're still going to have to replace some of them eventually. So we have 4 in Germany. We have 4 in Switzerland, 4 in Czechia. And we need 4, I guess, technically in Austria as well. Which means we're still going to have open availability for scouts. So, actually, technically, we should probably put some in Sweden for the Danish dudes. I almost forgot about that. And the Norwegian dudes. So, technically, I guess we will have to have some scouts in the SHL. And also Finland. So, let's do 1 in the SHL. Is this dude already in the SHL? Because it's not letting me click on it. Yeah, he was. Okay, so we have 2 in the SHL right there. And these guys, we could put 2 of them to Finland. Like I said, I guess we might as well have some in the Nordics just to find those Danish and Norwegian dudes. So we'll go over to Finland if this game would actually load. There you go. Let's go to Finland. And we'll need 1 more at least to Finland. Holy crap. I almost completely forgot, though, about Sweden and Finland. That would not have been good because then we would have not known anything about the Danish dudes. So there you go. And I don't think the Allsvenskens were scouting out with this last scout. Because the Allsvenskan never generates prospects. They have 3 right now, but they're probably not worth it. So let's go back to Europe. Actually, rest of the world. We'll put somebody in rest of the world. I don't think there's any prospects there. There's not. But obviously, if in the future there's one, we might as well have a scout in that position, right? So, technically now, we have 4 scouts in Germany, 4 in Switzerland, 4 in Czechia, 4 in Austria, 2 in Sweden, 2 in Finland, just to look for Norwegians and Danish guys, and then 1 in the rest of the world. So, that should be pretty good to set up for a mode like this. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Europe United Draft to Glory franchise mode. So, in next episode, We will simulate all of year number 2. I kind of hope the team can win its first game in franchise history, but I wouldn't really bank on us winning our first game. It could happen, but this team obviously still not very good on paper. Still going to take a lot of work to develop, but I'm excited for the upcoming draft class, just looking at all those goalies from random countries. Like, to see a Bosnian goalie and a Croatian goalie and stuff like that, I feel like I haven't seen that very often. So this is definitely, I think, a draft for us to get some more goalie prospects in. And then hopefully we can find ourselves, obviously, some good forward and defensive prospects as well. So that's down below, and I'll see you guys next time.